Hello everyone. So welcome to this session, and in this session we are going to discuss on event classes. So in the previous session we had discussed about the basics of event handling in Java program, and so now we'll just extend the discussion even in this session where we are going to learn about what are the event classes, right? And so now just to recap where I stopped in the previous session. So I just told you that whatever the event handling it is going to be in your Java program, so it is going to be an event object. Every event is going to be an event object. Hence, we are going to have an object of the class event object, and which is the topmost super class of all the other class which will be under AWT, that is the Advanced Window Toolkit. Whenever I want to develop an GUI based application in Java program, this is the major class what I just told you. Hence, now this is the subclass of the event object. Hence, whatever the event generated by the AWT class will be under or will be through any of this event object, and will raise an event through this class and its object. And whatever the GUI elements you're going to use to have an GUI based application using Java program, all those is going to be directly or indirectly will be part of AWT event. And these are the few classes. There are many more classes, but just few important classes which we require or which we need so to have a basic applet program, which is an GUI based Java program. Hence, we will just see what are these classes is going to be all about and how this is going to help me in building an GUI based Java application. And now I will just take class by class and I will just tell you what exact methods we will be using or we want to use, and what is their preference and when we need to use these classes. Hence, we will just go class by class and we'll discuss about all these classes at the abstract level. Hence, so now if I'm going to talk about the first class, the ActionEvent class, now whatever the action will be performed from a GUI interface as a user, I need to interact with an application. And now whenever I want to interact with an application, I'm going to use GUI as an interface. Using GUI as an interface, I'm going to communicate with my Java application which is an GUI based or which is an graphical based. Hence, the user may raise an action or give an action in the form of buttons. I'm going to press a OK button or I'm going to press a submit button, and it can be some list of items which I'm going to double click. I may have few elements which I double click or the menu items which I'm going to select. Hence, that is something like I'm going to click on the submit button and action event will be raised. And I'm just going to have the list of items so which I can choose, and if I want to make sure I'm going to pick this element, I need to double click. The first click for the choice, second click to choose. Hence, and I'm going to have menu item, I'm going to have a drop down menu, or I'm just going to have pop-up menu, but I'm going to have menu item through which I'm going to select. Hence, due to any of this input or any of this action performed by the user will give me an object of the type ActionEvent Class, and this class is going to contain a constructor of the type a parameterized constructor, which is going to take these three types of parameters. The first type is going to be the object source. That is, as I told you, the action can come from any source. Hence, I'm going to tell you what source is going to be, or this constructor is going to tell what source is going to be. And the first parameter is going to be the event source from where the action has been evolved or action has been created or action has been triggered. Hence, if I talk about any other class hereafter, all the class should have a source which is going to be an object which is going to give me an event. Hence, whatever the class we are going to talk with AWT, all those class, the first parameter is going to be the source itself. Fine. And with this, the second is going to be the type of the event. As I told you, I just gave you 3 examples of the type, what can be the type of event, and there are few more types of events which I can come across. And I'm just going to have the command of the event. Now, whatever the event I'm going to, I may have used a click. So what I'm going to do, if I'm going to submit, the submit command, OK, the OK command. Hence, I should be able to tell what command the event is going to rise and what should I need to process. And so now this is going to be the types of parameters what I need to pass. And when I talk about the constructor, there is going to be one more constructor for the ActionEvent class which takes 4 parameters. And these are 3 same parameters. The 4th parameter is going to be the modifier. That is, so from your keyboard, if I am going to use any of these keys, the shift key or the control key or the alt key, so this is where the command is going to be changed. So now when I am going to use any of this mask buttons or the mask key from the keyboards, this command should be applied for that mask. So pressing character A, pressing Control A is going to be different. Hence, I know what is A, but I should now know whether it's a Control A or not. Hence, I am just going to have this Shift Alt Mask. And when I say meta, what are the meta characters I am going to have from the keyboard? Even I need to have a mask for this. For example, a menu button or a Windows button or the escape button. All this is going to be meta keys on the keyboard, and even this is going to have a special type of command which should be received and processed. And the modifier can be action performed also. Now any of sort of action I am going to perform, so this action event is going to take up it as a modifier. And this is the parameters what the second type of constructor takes. And the third type of constructor is going to take the same set of parameters, but I am going to have one additional parameter in between the command and the modifier. That is the time when the click add happened. So being the mouse over here, so clicking a mouse at this time is different than the clicking mouse at the different time. Hence the when the event had occurred, if I want even the time of occurrence, I can get from this parameter. This is what whenever an action is performed, so I can know what is the source, where did the action came from, what type of action it is, and what is the command I need to use, or whether a command has been submitted by the user for execution, and when this event occurred, and whether the command and the event what I am receiving, is it along with any of a mask keys or not, and should I mask out those commands or not. So this is what the parameters of action event is going to take. And now if I want to know what is the command I need to execute or submitted from the GUI interface, I am just going to use a method of this class apart from the 3 constructor what I have just presented you. Along with that, I am just going to have the following method of this class, which we say get action command. Whatever the command this is going to have, I am just going to get what command has been typed. And to know what modifier has been used, I am going to use get modifier. It is going to return me an integer value, which is going to be the value of the constant which I have just discussed with you, either for the alt mask, the control mask, or any of those. And if I want to know the time, I am just going to say long get when the command has been happened. These are the 3 methods which I can make use to work with the action event. This is all about the action event class. Now we will see just what is going to be the adjustment event. So now when I'm going to talk about adjustment event, it's about the scroll bar. I'm just going to make use of scroll bar to adjust the view. That is what we say adjustment event. So whenever I'm going to work with the scroll bar, it is going to generate an adjustment event object and an event of the class adjustment event. And this is going to have a constructor where this constructor is going to have a source adjustable source. As I told you, every first parameter is going to be object of the source from where the event will be generated. And I'm just going to have an ID. So where the adjustment I'm going to have type and the data as the event source and the event ID. So whatever the event has been generated, and the type of the event is going to be of the different types, and the associated data for each type of event is going to occur. Now to see what type of event we are going to have, so these are the different types of events what it can occur when I talk about adjustment event. Fine. So we are going to have block decrement, we are going to have block increment, we are going to track unit decrement and unit increment. So these are the few of the functions which can happen. Now just look at this. Now I have just put a video over here. So just going to show you some operation about exactly how this scroll bar will be used. Now when I'm just going to play this, I'll just look at this. Fine. So now this is the scroll bar which I'm using. So when I'm going to click over here, this is going to be block decrement. When I click here, it's going to be block increment. I'm just going to click on this button, unit decrement, unit increment, and I can just move this bar to track. And this is a few operations what I'm going to perform on using the scroll bar when I'm going to have this type. So now what type of event it has been occurred? Did I click here to have a block decrement? Did I click here to have a block increment? Did I use this bar to drag E up and down? It's going to be track event. And if I click on this button, it's going to be unit decrement. If I click on this button, it's going to be unit increment. Yes. So now when I'm going to talk about unit, how many units I need to decrement, that is the associated data. When I say block, what is the number of units in the block? That is going to be the data for scrolling. So different types of scrolling what I can use when I'm going to adjustment event. And if I want to know what is the adjustable object is going to be from the first parameter, I'm going to use the function or the method of the class called as getAdjustable. And so if I want to know what type, is it a block decrement or increment, or it is a track, I'm just going to use getAdjustment type. And what value, what data, what associate data I need to increment or decrement, I can get it using the method int getValue. So this is going to be AdjustmentEvent Class. Now we'll see what is ComponentEvent Class. And when I'm going to have ComponentEvent Class, now this is going to occur whenever you're going to size or position or bring in a component to visibility or invisibility or hidden of a component which is going to change. Now for example, if this is the window what I have been created, in this window you can see list of components. First one is the text. This is the label. Label becomes the first component. The text field, the second component. The text area is going to be the fourth component. And even you can see the scroll bar over here. Even this can be the fourth component. Hence, now whenever we are going to put the component over here, you can just see I am going to call this as container. Now this is the area where you can put the component. You cannot have some component somewhere outside this window. Hence, if I am going to put any component, it should be in the form of container or inside the container. And so we'll see container later. But just now understand what is components. So different types of components what you're going to have. And this is what the component we are going to have. Hence, when I size, that is when I drag or when I'm going to remove, when I'm going to shrink this text area, this is going to be size. When I want to position this, when I'm going to drag any of a button or scroll bar, this is going to be position. Visibility, when I click the icon over here, this will be highlighted and visible. And when I'm going to change the component, when I type some character over here, that's going to be the change in the component. For any of this reason, whatever it happens, that is going to raise me a component event and should be processed and handled. And this is going to have a constructor which takes source as the first parameter as usual, and the type. That is, whether the component is hidden, when the component will go behind, or invisible, we're going to call this as component hidden. Or if I want to show the component or highlight the component, we'll say component shown, or component to moved, or component resized. When this event is going to occur, so it can be for any one of this reason. Hence, I should know what type of the event it is going to have. And when I want to get to know what component of the object reference is going to be, I am going to use the method component get component. And so now when I'm going to talk about the component event, now this component event, remember this is going to be the super class either directly or indirectly. It's going to be the super class directly or indirectly for all these classes. Fine. For the container, for the focus event, which I will discuss later, for the key event, the mouse event, the window event, for all this, either directly or indirectly, the component event class is going to be the super class. Fine. Whereas this itself is the subclass of AWT class. Fine. And whereas that is the subclass of event class. Hence now this is going to be the subclasses. Now we'll see one by one what exactly the container event is going to be. Now when I talk about container event, now as I told you, when I'm going to have components, the component should be inside an view window, and that window we call this as container or container frame. That is where we add or remove the container from the component, or we are going to add or remove the component from a container. So if I want to add a component, it should be a container. If I am going to remove a component, obviously it should be from a container. This is what container event class is going to be. And as I told you, the container event is going to be a subclass of component event. Fine. So now with this, I am going to have a constructor for the container event, which takes the first parameter as usual, and the type is going to be the component added or the component removed. Any one of this type should be. Whenever the component is added, this event will rise. Whenever the component is removed, the event is going to write. And now what component has been added and what component has been added? Now this is going to be the parameter. The third parameter is going to tell me what component, the reference for the component what has been added. If I add a label, the reference of this label will be in this component. Hence, if I want to know the container ID, I am just going to use the method get container. And if I want to know what is the component added, and if I want to know the reference, I am going to say get child, because when I am going to have container, whatever the component you are going to put here, so we can call this as child because it will be inside that container. Hence, we are going to say it as get child to get to know what component has been just now added or recently removed. And so now with this is going to be the container event. So next we'll talk about the focus event now. That is, so now whenever you're going to have n number of elements or components in the container, now any of this component can be highlighted, what we call it as focused, or can be deactivated and what we call as unfocused. Right now this button is in focus if you observe, and later on if I am able to move the mouse here, this button may be activated and this will come into focus. And this is where any component which will gain the focus or will lose the focus, that is where this event will be raised. Hence, so now for this purpose, I am going to have the focus event again is going to be a subclass of component event, because whenever I am going to talk about focus event, I need to have a component. Without a component, I cannot talk about focus, or I cannot talk about unfocused, or it gains a focus or is going to lose the focus. Hence, this is the subclass of the component event class. Fine. And even this is going to have a constructor, and which takes two parameters, the event source and the type. The type is going to be focus gained or focus lost. And so I'm just going to have right now this is going to gain the focus, and later on it may lose the right now this has gained the focus, and remaining all the elements has been lost the focus. This is where I'm going to use that type. And I'm going to have one more type of constructor which is going to be the same parameter but one more additional parameter called as temporary flag. That is, right now if you just observe this focus, once I click on this, even if I'm going to remove the mouse out of this, the focus will stay over there. Hence this is not temporary focus. If I'm going to place my mouse here, if it highlights, and if I remove the mouse from the position, if it is going to go unfocused, we'll call this as temporary focus. Hence this temporary flag will tell me whether the component is going to hold temporary focus or is going to hold some sort of permanent focus or not. If the flag is true, it is temporary focus. If it is false, it is not a temporary flag or temporary focus. Hence right now this object, even if I remove the cursor, the focus will stay on. Hence this is where temporary flag will be false in this case. And I am going to have one more extension of the same constructor which is going to contain one more parameter, and this parameter is now this is going to be the opposite component. That is, now if I am going to bring this button to focus, the other button will go to unfocus. And if I bring this button back to focus, the other button will go to unfocus. Hence there is an opposite component which exactly works in opposite. So if the element component is focused, at the same time an element will go to unfocused. When I bring this to focus, this will go to unfocused. Hence there is going to be opposite component, and that opposite component will be in the parameter called as other. Hence now if I want to know what is the opposite component which is working right now intact, we're going to use that function. And if I want to know whether the component is temporary or some sort of permanent, I am going to use the function isTemporary. Now this is going to return true if the focus stays temporarily, and if it returns false, hence the element of the component is going to some sortly stay permanently until I'm going to deactivate this. And this is what the focus event is going to be. And next, if I am going to talk about the input event, now this input event is again the subclass of the ComponentEvent class. And just to have an information, this input event is going to depend upon the KeyEvent and the MouseEvent. Hence the keyboard event, what we call this as KeyEvent, and the MouseEvent. So these are the two subclasses of the InputEvent class. Hence even now these classes are indirectly attached with the ComponentEvent. This is what we say. The ComponentEvent class is superclass either directly or indirectly. Fine. So now to talk about the InputEvent class, so which is mainly depends upon the KeyEvent and the MouseEvent class, we should talk about the modifiers, because a keyboard contains the Alt key, the Shift key, the Control key, the Meta, the Alt Graph Mask key, and if you talk about the mouse, we'll be having button 1, button 2, button 3 on your mouse. We're going to have 3 buttons on the mouse. And so the few modifiers which you should talk about. Now if I'm going to talk about this Alt key, you're aware about what the Alt key is going to do, and you know about the Shift key, the Control key, and the Meta character, either the home button, or I'm going to have menu button, I'm going to have escape, these functions, all is going to be the meta characters, so the meta keys. Now if we talk about Alt Graph Mask, this is the Alt character or the key. So when I press this, this is going to give me this special graphical characters. If I press this button, and for example if I press C, now I'm just going to get this copyrighted symbol, a graphical representation. And if I press Alt and R, I am going to get the registered graphical character. Hence the graph stands for graphical character. Hence, so the few modifiers which I can make use of when I'm going to talk about keyboard event. and the latest version of Java, or the Java 6 version, thereafter it is going to use extended modifier. Fine. So rather than just saying this as alt mask, this will be called as alt down mask. That is, when I press the button, we call this as down state. Hence, so now this mask will be activated only when the button is pressed down. When I release, it doesn't have any meaning. Hence, so rather than just having this as alt mask, this should be called as alt down mask. Hence, now whenever you're going to make use of this modifiers, and if you are building now any of the web-based Java application, it is better to use the extended modifier rather than the original modifier. Still this will work, but it's the better way of doing it. Hence, now for every key, whatever I'm going to have, we need to talk about the down state, because by default when I press the key, that is where the action will start. And now if I want to know whether the alt key was down or not, use that function. If this function returns true, then the alt key was used. And if this function should be called, and if it returns true for me, then the alt graph key was down. Similarly, you can use any of this function to check whether the control key, the shift key, the meta keys were down or not by having the true or the false value. And if you want to get to know what modifier has been used from this original modifier, I am going to use get modifier method. And if you want to work, or if you want to know the extended modifier what has been used, we are going to use int get modifier ex, that is extended, short form of extended. This is the methods what we are going to have in the InputEvent class. And from this InputEvent class, now we'll talk about item event, then later we'll discuss about the KeyEvent and the MouseEvent. And when I talk about the item event, so whatever the items you see, something like I'm going to have a menu option, the drop down menu, the list option, or the choice, I'm going to have checkbox, I'm going to have the radio button, I'm going to have this list, whatever such type of elements I'm going to have, we call this as item event. And this is also going to act as an input for me. Hence, this is where the item event will come into picture, because in this case, I am not typing anything from the keyboard, or I am not using the mouse to drag and drop. It is just whatever the inputs available, I'll be giving this as an input to my program. Hence, we call this as ItemEvent class. Hence, this has got a constructor which is going to be the event source, and I'm going to have type can be selected, whether I have been selected an option or I am been deselected. So right now I am going to click on this checkbox, it is selected. Again, if I click on the same checkbox, it is deselected. And this is where the event will be raised. Whenever you click, event is raised. When I click again to deselect, the event is raised. And now the item state will change. So this element's item will change. That is, for example, if I click on this arrow button, the menu will be shown as there's a change in the state. Again, if I click or choose any of this option, again the item state will change, it will traverse back. This is what we're going to have type of event when I choose the item event. And whenever we're going to have any of this item, whether I have made any entry as an input or not, we can call about this parameter specific item passes, whether I'm going to pass out of this menu option, what value I'm going to pass. Out of these three options, what value I'm going to pass. That is the item which has been passed. And the state, the current state of the item, which object have been selected or not. I have been chosen the option in the list or not. That is what is going to be the state of the item which is going to be in the view. And if I want to get to know what item has been selected, so I'm going to use this method. And if I want to know whether the state has been changed and what element state has been changed, I'm going to use this method. And I'm going to check whether the item is selectable item or not. To select whether item is selectable or not, I am going to use this method, get item selectable. I am going to choose this, so which is going to return me whether it is going to be the least or it is going to be the choice. If it is a radio button or checkbox, I am going to get the output as choice or the return value as choice from this method. And if it is least, I am going to get the return value as the least from this method reference. This is what the item event is going to be. And now if I talk about the key event, or it's going to be the keyboard event, so this will be raised whenever there is going to be input from the keyboard. Hence the key event component is the event source, and I'm going to have the type of the event. So I'll just tell you what exact type of event is going to be, and I'm going to have when did the key was pressed from the keyboard, hence the time when the keyboard event had occurred when I pressed a key. And when I talk about type of event, the type of event can be the key is pressed or key is released, or when I start typing the characters from the keyboard. And being in this type of event, so the key should be able to produce a character. Fine. If I press shift key, so this type of event will be not generated, because shift will never going to give me a character. But whereas if I press a character, a key on the keyboard, it is going to give me a character. Hence this is going to be in the key type state. Hence the function, the event can be in any of this state, whether I have pressed, released or typed. And I am going to have the other events, or I can have n number of events on the keyboard. Whatever the key you are going to find on the keyboard, for every key there is going to be an event. Hence in that case, so I am going to have VK0, where VK stands for virtual key code. Hence I am going to have the 10 digits starting from 0 to 9 on the keyboard. Hence I am going to have VK0 to VK9, and I am going to have all the 26 alphabets. Hence we are going to have VKA to VKZ. So these are the type of event what I can generate. Along with this, the other keys are Alt key, the Shift key, the Control key, and the event can be the up key, down, left and the right key, and the cancel key, the enter key, the escape key, the page up, the page down, and any keys what you take on the keyboard. All those event is going to have the virtual key code event what is going to be. And now this type of event can be generated by any of a key on your keyboard. And when this has occurred, and did you use the modifier or not, that is, did you use the shift key or the alt key, the control key, the meta character, the graph, or the modified or extended modifier, this is going to be the modifier now. That is, whether I have been pressed the alt key, then I did pressed any character or not. And now this is different than this. When I say VK alt, now this the key what I have been pressed on the keyboard. So by pressing that key, if I have been pressed any other character, there is going to be the alt mask. Hence I have a clear difference between these two. And so now when I am going to press a key, every key is going to have a ASCII value or a ASCII character. That is what I am going to have the code of the key. And the actual character what I have been typed, I am going to have character. And sometimes, so there are few characters which doesn't have a key or the ASCII value, and there are characters and there are few keys on the keyboard which will never generate a character for us. Now, for example, if I am going to press a Windows key, it doesn't have any code, and if I am going to press the Shift key, it doesn't have any character. And so in that time, so this parameter will be replaced with the VK undefined. It is undefined. The virtual key is undefined for the particular key on the keyboard when you are going to have this as the parameter. And if the key doesn't generate a character, then this type parameter will be filled with character undefined. This is how we are going to use the KeyEvent class. And if I want to know what is the code or what is the character, we are going to use the respective methods of the class KeyEvent. And now this is going to be the KeyEvent. And if I'm going to talk about the MouseEvent, I'm going to have an input from the mouse, and whenever there's going to be input from the mouse, I'm going to have a mouse event. And now this is going to take the event source and the type of the event, so which is going to be whether the mouse is pressed, the mouse is released, mouse is clicked. So just have a difference between these two. When I say clicked, it is immediately press and release. We call this as click. And whether the mouse is moved from its position to other position, or the mouse is dragged by holding any one button, either the left button, the right button, or any button. If you press the button and if you drag, we call this as mouse drag event. And if we have used a mouse wheel event, this is going to be the type. And if you have entered the mouse event, once you start using the mouse, we call this as enter. And once the mouse will go to idle state, we call this as exit. And when did the mouse event occur, and whether any modifier has been used. That is, I am going to use button 1 or the button 2 mask, button 3 mask, and so on. I have used any modifier. Along with this modifier, even you can talk about the Alt, whether you have pressed the control and you are using mouse, or if you have pressed the Alt and you are using mouse, you can even talk about those modifiers. And so when I'm going to have a mouse, so mouse is going to have an coordinate value. The 67, 66 is the coordinate value of this mouse currently. Hence this X value is going to be the first value, the X coordinate value of the mouse, and the Y is going to be the Y coordinate value of the mouse currently on your screen or on your window. And click is the number of click. So whether you have been clicked once or you have clicked twice, that is what the click count is going to be. And trigger pop is, now whenever you're going to have the mouse, if I'm going to right click the mouse, you can see there's going to be a menu option. Fine. So this is going to be the pop-up menu. If such case is going to happen, so we are going to have the trigger pop-up, whether there's going to be trigger pop-up or not, which makes the menu to appear or not. This is the methods what I'm going to use. And the methods are, if I want to know what is the X value and if I want to know what is the Y value, use this function. And if I want to know both the X and Y value at a time in single structure, use getPoint. And if I want to translate this point, right now this is the current point, by adding few values X and Y value, if I want to translate, I can use this method by passing X and Y value. Now when I call this function, for the current position of the point, the X and Y value will be added. And when I want to know how many clicks has been made, use the method getClickCount. And so when I want to know whether the button has got a menu or not, we are going to talk about Boolean is pop-up trigger is there or not. If this method returns me true, then there is a pop-up menu or pop-up values or the list of values from the mouse button. If it returns false, there is no such. And I can know what button has been pressed by using this method. Now this will return me either the button 1 is pressed, if the button 1 is pressed, and if the button 3 is pressed, this is going to return me the constant value of the button 3, and if none of the button is pressed, I am going to get the value as no button. So this is what the MouseEvent class is going to do. And so now just have a look at this. When I talk about mouse pointer, the mouse pointer can be on your window what you have created, or the mouse pointer can be on anywhere on your window, that is the monitor screen. So now whatever the function I have just discussed, this is with the window what you have been used. And if you want to get the mouse position in the screen, I am going to use this methods. So get X on screen coordinates, get Y on screen coordinates, and point get location on screen. And instead of so if I use these methods, this will give me the mouse value, current mouse coordinate value from the window what I have been created. And if I use this, this is going to give me wherever it's on the screen. And this is going to be the mouse event. And next, if I'm going to talk about the extension of the mouse event, that is going to be the mouse wheel event. that is the subclass of the MouseEvent. So when I use this wheel either to drag or drop or to move the content up and down, we're going to call this as MouseWheelEvent and will be generated. And so this is almost similar to the MouseEvent, but it has an extension with 3 more parameters. In this 3 more parameters, the first parameter is how the scroll had been done. The wheel block scroll, whether I have been doing the block scroll or I'm going to do with a unit scroll. So now if I'm doing a unit scroll, so what is the number of units I have been scrolled? That is going to be the amount. And if I'm going to talk about count, it's the number of rotation what I have made for the wheel. That is going to be the parameter count in your MouseWheelEvent class. And if I want to know what is the type of scroll is going to be, use the method getScrollType. And if I want to know what is the amount of scroll has been made, getScrollAmount. And if I want to know what is the wheel rotation is going to be, if I want to know what is the wheel rotation, that is how many rotation it has been done along with this. So if this value is going to be negative value, then we can say the wheel rotation was clockwise. And if this is going to be positive value, if it returns a positive value, then the rotation would have been counterclockwise. The few methods which we can make use of. This is the MouseWheelEvent. And if I talk about the TextEvent, so which has been generated whenever you're going to make use of the text field, something like this, or when you're going to use the text area. Whenever you activate and start typing in text field or text area, there is the time where the text event will be generated and should be handled. And it has got the one constructor, which is the object source as usual, and the type, whether the text value has been changed or not. As I start typing, as I'm going to activate this, press the first character, the text value has been changed. Press the second character, the text value has been changed. And there is the one type of event what can be generated for the text event. This is what the text event is going to be. And if I'm going to talk about the window event, I'm going to have a window. Now this window should be able to be controlled. I should be able to open a window, and when the window is opened, so the window event is going to occur. When the window closes or window is closing, during closing the event occurs. Even after the window is closed, the event is going to occur. So when I activate, when I bring a window to foreground, or when I make the window to go to background, or when I'm going to make the window to get focused and start the operation, or when the window is going to lost its focused once the operation is completed, or when I'm going to minimize this window, or when I maximize the window. So iconified is minimizing, de-iconified is maximizing the window. Or whenever there's going to be change in the state of the window, so this event will be created and should be handled with particular to window. And that is what this constructor takes: two parameters, the event source and the type of the event what I have been just discussed and what this is going to do. And this is going to have one more constructor where this is going to have opposite window. That is, when I am going to deactivate the first window, the second window will be activated. When I deactivate the second window, the first window will be activated. Hence, when I minimize the one window, the other window will maximize. And if there's any such opposite window, that's going to be in the parameter window other. And I'm going to have one more constructor, so which is going to take two more types of parameters along with the type. So that is, so what is the state of the window? That is the previous state and the new state. If you want to know what is the previous state of the window, it was minimized and later it was closed, or it has opened then minimized. It was minimized then maximized. If I want to know what is the previous state and what is the current state, I am going to use this type of constructor. Now if you want to know the from state to state as well as the opposite window, I am going to use this constructor which has got the source, the type of window event, the opposite window, from which state to which state the window has traversed. Hence I can make use of this particular constructor to get those information. And when I want to get to know the window ID, use the method getWindow. When I want to know the reference of an opposite window, getOppositeWindow. When I want to know what is the old state of the window and what is the new state of the window, I am going to use this particular methods. And this is what is going to be all about this event classes. This is what we need to understand about the event classes. So clearly understand this. So in next session, we'll discuss about the source and how exactly we're going to make use of the source along with this event classes. Hence, so thank you for this session.